I want you to just run a little simulation in your head for a second. And it's kind of a nightmare scenario, to be honest, but just stay with me.
Okay.
You're sitting in a room, and you're waiting for a verdict that you have zero control over.
Yeah.
Absolutely none. Maybe it's a courtroom. Maybe you're waiting for an oncologist to walk in with your file. But the stakes
Yeah.
they're binary. It's total ruin or total relief.
Life or death.
Life or death.
Right.
Freedom or prison. I mean, that is a high-stress environment.
Yeah, my heart rate's already going up just thinking about it. Seriously.
It's the highest stakes imaginable. Now, be honest. How does the average person, how does your brain process that moment?
Oh, panic. I think the default setting is absolute crippling anxiety. You're spiraling. You're trying to, bargain with the universe. You are just consumed by the fear of the what is.
Exactly. That's the biological baseline. But today, we're diving into a source that it documents a glitch in that system. We're looking at a man, Paul, sitting in a Roman prison, maybe days away from execution. And he isn't pacing.
He's not hyperventilating?
No. He has this total, almost unnerving clarity.
It really is unnerving, yeah. It's almost alien compared to how, modern culture teaches us to handle uncertainty.
And that's why we're here. We're doing a deep dive into a sermon called Worthy of the Gospel. It's by Pastor Florin from Agape Community Church, part of a whole series called Unshakable.
And what's really cool is we also have the pastor's raw research notes.
Yes.
And that's where some of the really fascinating linguistic stuff is hiding. Things that couldn't even make it into the final Sunday message.
Right. And the goal here isn't just to, recap a sermon. We're trying to figure out the mechanism behind Paul's calm. How do you apprentice under that kind of mindset? How do you build a foundation that doesn't crack when the world starts shaking?
Sure. Because let's be real, whether you're new to Christianity or you've been a follower of Jesus for decades, anxiety it's a universal language right now.
Absolutely. And Paul isn't writing this from, theology library with a latte. He's writing for the trenches. So if we want that confidence, we have to look at how he just fundamentally redefines what it means to win at life.
Winning is exactly the right word because the text opens with a very specific kind of risk assessment.
Let's get right into that. Philippians 1.21. For to me, to live is Christ and to die is gain.
The bumper sticker verse.
It is. It's on T-shirts, coffee mugs, Instagram bios. And I feel like because it's so catchy, we've totally lost the shock value of what he's actually saying.
Oh, yeah. We just nod along. Sure, to die is gain. Sounds nice. We sanitize it.
We do. But the research notes, they break this down with a really helpful analogy. It's the idea of betting your life savings, the all-in moment.
Okay, walk me through that.
So imagine you take everything you own, your house, your 401k, your reputation, and you just shove it all into the center of the table on a single bet.
Terrifying, because there's always a chance you lose it all.
Exactly. But Paul is looking at his situation, life or death.
Yeah.
And he realizes he's in a rigged game. He literally cannot lose.
It's the ultimate win-win.
It is. Look at his logic. It's airtight. So option A, he lives. He survives the trial. What happens?
He gets to keep working. He serves Christ. He helps the church. That's a win for his mission.
Right. A win. Now, option B, he dies. The executioner swings the sword. What happens then?
He gets to be with Christ.
And he calls that gain. Not the end, not a tragedy. He actually views death as an upgrade.
So if living is fruitful labor and dying is an immediate promotion, fear just becomes obsolete. You can't threaten a man who sees death as a reward.
That is a difficult headspace for us to get into, I think. Because modern culture, and honestly, even a lot of modern church culture, is obsessed with living your best life now.
Oh, absolutely. It's the cultural water we swim in.
We measure winning by comfort, safety, how long we live, a diversified portfolio. We see death as the ultimate loss of assets.
And that's the friction point. We often treat Jesus as like an additive to our lives, a vitamin or an app update. He's there to make my life safer, happier, more successful.
But Paul is just flipping the whole table. He's saying, no, Jesus isn't an additive. He is the life. If your definition of winning is comfort, then prison is a loss. But if your definition of winning is Jesus being glorified, then suddenly you're untouchable.
It explains why he's not panicking in that cell. He's playing a completely different game than his Roman guards are.
He is. And this whole mindset, it connects to a really technical but fascinating point in verse 19. Paul writes, I know that. This will turn out for my deliverance.
Deliverance, okay. So normally when I hear that, I just assume he's being an optimist. He thinks, I've got a good lawyer, I'm going to get out of jail.
That's the common reading.
Yeah.
But the pastor's notes highlight the specific Greek word he uses there. It's soteria.
Which usually means salvation, right? Like being saved from sin.
Usually, yes. But in this specific context, the raw research notes point out he's actually quoting the Old Testament. He's echoing Job 13.1 scene.
Job, the guy who lost everything.
The very same.
Yeah.
Job used this exact language when he was being accused and was suffering. So when Paul uses it here, it's not about deliverance in the sense of a jailbreak.
So what is it then?
It's about vindication.
Vindication. Huh. That feels different. That's not about escaping. That's about being proven right.
Exactly. Paul isn't sitting there saying, I just know the Roman judge is going to let me go. He's smart enough to know he might die. He's saying, I know that God will have the final word on this. He trusts that God will prove him faithful, regardless of the verdict here on earth.
Wow. That's a massive shift in where you place your trust. It's moving from trusting God for a specific result, like getting the job or the healing or getting out of jail.
To trusting God with the outcome, whatever it looks like.
Yes. It's believing that God's court is the Supreme Court. If the Roman judge condemns him but God vindicates him, he's still won. It just takes all the power away from the critic or the boss or the government and places it squarely in God's hands.
I love that. God's court is the only one that matters. It just frees you up. You can stop performing for the gallery.
Precisely.
So, okay, moving through the text. Paul has this to die is gain mindset. He even admits he wants to depart. He says it would be better by far to just go be with Jesus.
Which makes sense. I mean, no more chains, no more prison food, no more beatings.
But he doesn't check out. He says it is necessary for him to stay. And this is where the sermon notes pivot to this idea of apprenticeship, because I feel like a lot of people today, when things get hard, the instinct is to bail.
Oh, we see it everywhere. We call it quiet quitting in the workplace, but we totally do it spiritually too.
Okay, so what does spiritual quiet quitting look like?
It's just disengagement. We hit a rough patch in our faith, or church gets messy, or we're just tired. So we drift. We stop serving. We stop engaging in community. We just kind of coast.
Yeah. I've done my time. Let someone else handle the nursery, or I'll just watch the live stream from my couch.
Exactly. But Paul fights that temptation.
Yeah.
And here's where the apprenticeship part comes in. Following Jesus isn't just about what you believe in your head. It's about the practice. It's about what you do. Paul realizes his life isn't his own property to do with as he pleases.
Right. He says he will remain for their progress and joy. He realizes his presence has a utility for other people.
That was a key takeaway for me. If you are still breathing, you are still needed.
It's such a powerful antidote to apathy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why hasn't God taken you home yet? Why are you still in this hard marriage or this challenging job or this chaotic city? Paul would say it's because your presence is necessary for someone else's faith.
The notes mention this idea of spiritual parents or mentors. Just having them in the room changes the atmosphere.
It really does. I mean, think about the people in your life who've stabilized you just by being there. Maybe they didn't even say much, but their consistency, the fact that they showed up week after week despite their own struggles, that fueled your faith.
It's like they're a visual anchor.
Exactly. And Paul realizes he's that anchor for the Philippians. If he dies, he wins. But if he stays, they win. So he chooses to stay in the mess of ministry because he loves them. That is the apprenticeship of presence. It's practicing Jesus-like love by showing up when you'd rather check out.
So we've got this internal clarity. Christ is the win. We've got this commitment to stay and serve. And then Paul shifts gears to tell the church how they should live. Verse 27. Conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ.
Okay, here's where the linguistic deep dive gets really good. That Greek word for worthy here is axios.
Axios.
Yeah.
Sounds like a men's body spray.
Or a sci-fi villain.
But in the first century, it referred to a set of scales. It literally means matching in weight.
Matching in weight. Okay, I have to pause you there. Because when I hear live worthy of the gospel or match the weight of the gospel, my brain immediately goes to guilt.
Sure. I can never do enough.
Right. The gospel is infinite. Jesus died for the world. How can I possibly live a life that matches the weight of that? It just sounds like setting yourself up for failure.
And that is a very, very crucial distinction to make. Pastor Florin was emphatic in the notes about this. This is not works-based salvation. We do not earn the gospel. You can't pay God back. The ledger is just thrown out the window.
So how do we balance the scales if we can't pay?
It's not about payment, it's about reflection. It's about value. Think about it this way. Imagine someone entrusted you with a priceless historic diamond, like the Hope Diamond.
Okay, got it. Holding the diamond. Don't drop it.
Now, living worthy of that diamond doesn't mean you pay for it. You can't. It means you don't use it to shim a wobbly table leg.
Right.
You don't toss it in the junk drawer. You treat it with the care, the honor, the protection that it deserves.
I see. So it's about appropriate handling.
Exactly. Paul is saying, your life should reflect the immense weight and value of the message you claim to believe. If I say the gospel is the most important thing in the universe, but I live a life totally consumed by petty arguments or selfishness or fear, the scales are off. My life isn't matching the weight of my message.
That clicks. And the text ties this idea specifically to citizenship. The notes say the Greek word for conduct yourselves is politeuomai.
Which literally translates to live as a citizen.
And we have to remember the context here. Philippi wasn't just any city, it was a Roman colony.
Right, it was distinct. They were incredibly proud of their Roman status. They dressed like Romans, spoke like Romans, followed Roman laws. It was like a little Rome in the middle of Greece.
And Paul is just hijacking that civic pride and saying, no, your real citizenship is in heaven.
This reminds me of that core teaching in Matthew 6.33, where Jesus says to seek first the kingdom.
Yes, and this is the concept we really need to grasp. When we become followers of Jesus, we're not just joining a club or, a philosophy discussion group. We're adopted into the family of God, which is also the nation of God.
We call it the kingdom of God, and yeah, the kingdom is a real nation.
A real nation.
It has a specific national heritage, a distinct culture, and a set of values that often clash with the world around us. Jesus told his followers to seek that kingdom first because everything else we do, everything else, rests on that identity.
So living worthy means acting like a citizen of that kingdom, regardless of where you actually live.
Precisely. It's when in Rome, do as the heavens do. And Paul uses this very specific metaphor to describe what this citizenship looks like. It's military. He talks about striving together as one.
The notes mention the Roman testudo, or tortoise formation.
That's the image. Roman soldiers were famous for their shields, but a shield wasn't just for personal protection. It was designed to lock into the shield of the man next to you. They would create this solid wall of iron.
That basically turns a group of individuals into a tank.
Exactly. And the implication is so clear. You cannot live a worthy life in isolation. You can't be a solo citizen. In the kingdom of God, unity isn't just a nice idea, it's a survival strategy.
So if you drop your shield or you break rank because you disagree with the guy next to you, you don't just endanger yourself, you endanger the whole line.
Which is a huge challenge to our individualism, isn't it? We like to think my faith is personal and private. Paul is saying, no, it's corporate and public. We have to lock shields.
And why do they need to lock shields? Because they are under attack. Which brings us to the final and, honestly, the hardest part of this text. Suffering.
Yeah, this is the part where the room usually gets very quiet. Verse 29. For it has been granted to you on behalf of Christ, not only to believe in him, but also to suffer for him.
Granted, that's the key word. It means gifted. It's a grace gift.
Okay, I gotta push back on that a little. Faith is a gift. I get that. Grace is a gift. I love that. But suffering is a gift. That feels, I don't know, masochistic. How can suffering be a sign of favor?
It's incredibly countercultural. It goes against every instinct we have. But Paul puts believing and suffering in the same category. He sees them both as evidences that you are in the right place.
How so?
The notes use this brilliant illustration of the passport stamp. Think of your life as a passport. When you travel to a different country, you get a stamp proving you were there.
Okay.
Paul suggests that suffering for Jesus is like a stamp in your passport. It proves where your citizenship truly lies.
So if life is easy and everyone applauds us and we never face any pushback, maybe we haven't actually crossed the border into the kingdom yet.
That's the uncomfortable implication. If you're walking the narrow road and the world is going the other way, friction is inevitable. You're going to bump shoulders.
There's a great detail in the research notes about the word frightened in verse 28. Paul tells them not to be frightened by those who oppose them.
Yes, the Greek word is tyrominoi. It's a very descriptive word, typically used for a startled horse.
A startled horse.
Yeah, you know how a horse gets spooked by a snake or a sudden noise in the brush? It rears up, eyes wide, just total uncontrollable panic.
Why? Because it doesn't understand what's happening. It perceives a threat it can't process.
And Paul is using that image for us.
He's telling the church, don't be a startled horse. When opposition comes, don't rear up in shock. Don't panic because something bad is happening.
Because if you know the end of the story, it shouldn't be a surprise.
Right. It's not a glitch. It's not a sign that God has abandoned you. It's actually a sign that you're on the right track. It's a sign of salvation, as Paul puts it. It validates that you are standing with Jesus.
That really reframes the whole experience of hardship. Because usually when bad things happen or when people criticize us for our faith, our first thought is, what did I do wrong? Why isn't God protecting me?
And Paul says he is protecting you. He's given you the privilege of carrying his scars. It changes suffering from a tragedy into a badge of honor. It's proof of loyalty.
So let's try to synthesize this because we've covered a lot of ground. We started with uncertainty in the prison cell. We moved to redefining the win as Jesus himself, that life savings bet.
Then we talked about the apprenticeship of presence, staying engaged for the sake of others, practicing our faith by showing up.
Then we locked shields with the citizenship concept, matching the weight of the gospel. And finally, we landed on suffering as the passport stamp of that citizenship.
It's a complete overhaul of how we view our lives. It really is unshakable. If you build your life on this foundation, that Christ is the win, then nothing can topple you. Not a bad verdict, not a difficult job, not even death.
It goes right back to that clarity Paul had. If Jesus is the sure thing, we can afford to be generous. We can afford to be brave. We can afford to suffer.
Because the return on investment is guaranteed. To live as Christ, to die as gain. You can't bankrupt a man who has that in his account.
So here's the question we want to leave you with today. We like to end with a provocative thought for you to chew on. We talked about living worthy or matching the weight of the gospel.
Your audit.
Yes, the audit. I want you to mentally pull up your calendar from the last month. Pull up your bank statement. Pull up your list of anxieties, the things that kept you up at night. If a complete stranger looked at those 3 documents, your time, your money, and your worries, would they conclude that the gospel of Jesus is the most valuable thing in your universe?
That's the apprenticeship question. Does the weight of my actual life match the weight of the message I claim?
It's not about earning it. It's about reflecting it.
Exactly. And if the scale is off, what needs to move?
We want to thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into Philippians 1. We know this was a heavier one, but man, it's necessary stuff for building that firm foundation.
It really is. And thank you for making the time to participate in this conversation with us.
And hey, if you want to go straight to the source, and we always recommend you do, check out the Agape Community Church YouTube channel. You can hear Pastor Florin deliver this message firsthand. It's a work in progress. They're building it up, but the content is solid and getting better every week.
Definitely worth the click to get the full context.
Absolutely. Thanks for trusting us with your time today. Go lock shields with someone.
See you next time.